Well, I muted it. Yeah. I think that's when it's dinging when people are joining. It's up to 71. Yeah, that's what it is.
Respected Dean of Agriculture and Principal Investigator of IDP, Dr. A. Pratap Kumar Reddy, Dean of PG Studies, Dr. D. Palgu, Dean of Agriculture Engineering and Technology, Dr. K. L. Reddy Garu, and other university officers, associate deans, ADRs of different research centers, distinguished faculty of IDP, Dr. A. Pratap Kumar Reddy, dignitaries from other universities, and my dear students. Good evening, everyone. Of Agriculture Engineering and other university officers, associate deans, areas of different research. Is there any echo sound, sir? I'm sorry.
It is getting repetition echo. I think there is
echo sound, sir.
Yeah, there is echo. You're playing in the background. I think you have a Zoom session that's running.
Is there any echo sound, sir?
Yeah, there is echo. You're playing in the background. I think you have a Zoom session that's running. Yeah, there is echo. You're playing in the background. I think you have a Zoom session that's running.
No, sir.
There are multiple Zoom sessions running on your PC. You're playing in the background, I think. There are multiple Zoom sessions running.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening, sir. Is it okay
Good
now?
evening. Good evening, Omaj.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening.
Yeah, that looks fine now, ma'am. I think you can continue.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Good evening, everyone.
Good evening, sir.
Myself, Dr. K. Uma Devi.
Good evening. Good evening.
I think, can you mute everyone? Can you mute everyone? Yeah, that looks fine now, ma'am. I think you can continue.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening, sir.
Myself, Dr. K. Uma Devi.
I think. Yeah, try now.
Yeah, that looks fine now, ma'am. I think you can continue.
Yeah, try now.
Yeah, that looks fine now, ma'am. Fine now.
Do you have a YouTube channel running?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, can you turn that off also, because it'll take the feed from the YouTube also. Like, it should not be running on your PC.
Okay.
Morning, Professor Lal. How are you? This is Gopal from Oklahoma State University.
Yes, sir. How are you? Good evening. Good morning to you. Yeah, you're here at Oklahoma. Yeah. So are they presenting the recorded talk now?
Yeah, they're just waiting because they had some echo, so they were just trying to figure that out. I think they had some multiple sessions running in that room, so they were just restarting that system.
Okay.
Yeah, good to see you in the morning.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I have been busy. I think the best thing was to give the recorded because things can happen sometime. So at least, and they confirmed that they could download it. So
Yeah, that's good. That's good.
so if they have not started yet, then I'm not needed for at least another 40 minutes or so.
Yeah, I think they're just about to get the introduction done. So they're rebooting that system that had some echo on it.
Well, maybe I can wait until they get started so I know it's working.
Okay, thank you.
Please keep me posted. Keep me informed.
Sure. Yeah.
Hi, sir. Good morning. This is Dr. Meena from BHU.
Oh, yes, sir. How are you?
Fine. Thank you, sir.
Very good.
I'm your student, sir.
No, we are colleagues. And I'm really impressed with all the hard work you're doing. Is your students and class, are you teaching also?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Exactly.
Okay, very nice.
Thank you, sir.
I know you are writing another book, which hopefully is progressing.
Yes, sir. And another assignment in encyclopedia with you, sir.
Okay, yes, yes. Very nice.
Hi, Gopal. Good evening.
Hello, good evening, good morning.
I'm extremely sorry for the inconvenience. Sorry for all the participants. Professor Ratan Lalji.
Thank you. Good evening. Thank you.
On behalf of ANGRU and IDP team, I thank all the participants for this national. To have with us World Food Prize laureate, distinguished University Professor of Soil Science from Ohio State University, USA, Professor Ratan. Welcome you, sir. I also take this opportunity to welcome our Dean of Agriculture and Principal Investigator of IDP, Dean PG Studies, Dr. D. Balguravai Garu, University officers, levels and water crisis. The only source of water we have in a tropical nation is the monsoon, and this monsoon comes down upon us over a span of 45 to 60 days. Water, we have to save it in our soil. Only with the generation, the most precious thing that we can give is not business, money or gold. It is rich soil. Without rich soil, there is no question of water. The micronutrition content in the soil has gone down so dramatically that over 70% of our children below 3 years of age are anemic today. So this is the time to really take action, and we can very easily reverse the whole situation if a sustained effort happens for another 10 to 25 years. The session soils in semi-arid tropics for food, climate and other ecosystems is planned, and there would be question and answers at the end of the session. If you have any questions during the presentation, now PG studies to Balguravai sir, please address the participants.
Thank you, Dr. Uma Devi. Am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Dean of NGRAU and IDP leader, Dr. A. Vishwanath Reddy Garu. Today's eminent speaker, Dr. Ratan Lal sir. What distinguished University Professor of Soil Science, Ohio State University, USA. Dear colleagues, friends, students, other participants. Guest lecture on managing the health of soils in semi-arid tropics for food, climate and other ecosystem services. Food security is a rising concern around the world, especially in developing countries, arid and semi-arid regions. The system provides different services to support living and human survival, which includes some major food sources around the world like agriculture, fisheries. In advancing times, humans services and produce gas. However, with increasing greenhouse gases, a new problem came into existence known as climate change, with accelerated issues like food security and safety. Under such issues, people and food supply growth estimates, it is becoming even more very complex and time-sensitive operation, and unfortunately, we may lose that knowledge unless farming becomes lucrative for the farmers. It is time for the educated people invest their children into the farming. With the today's science and technology, it can be done profitably and sustainably. India has about 160 million hectares of arable land, but nearly 60% of this soil is labeled as distressed soil. This means in another 25 to 30 years, we may not be able to grow the richness means striking oil, gold or diamonds. But if we want the next generation to live a rich life, it is important to live to have and nutritious food. There must be a strength in the foundation for the production of healthy food and thus contributes to local and global food security. The greatest of rich soil and water. The guest lecture on managing the for the benefit of the faculty and students of ANGRAU and India. Padma Shri Dr. Ratanlal sir, thank you very much for accepting our Padma Shri Professor Ratanlal ji, the world-renowned soil scientist, needs no introduction. However, I feel privileged to read his brief biodata so that youngsters can get inspired. Ratanlal sir is a distinguished university professor of soil science and director of CFAES, Dr. Ratanlal Carbon Management and Sequestration Center at the Ohio State University, an adjunct professor at the University of Leland and the University of Iceland and the Indian Agricultural Research Institute, New Delhi, President and Water Conservation, International Village Research Organization, Soil Science Society of America, and International Union Soil Sciences in 2017-2018. His research interests include soil carbon sequestration for food and climate security, conservation agriculture, soil health, principles and practices of soil erosion control, soil structure and carbon dynamics, eco-intensification of agroecosystems, soil restoration, the fate of soil carbon transported by soil erosion, and sustainable management of old soils. Professor Lal is editor-in-chief of Advances in Soil Science and of the Encyclopedia of Soil Science. He has authored more than 1,000 referred journal articles, authored and edited more than 100 books, and mentored 370 researchers. He has an H-index of 159 with total citations of about 120,000. He holds chair in soil science and goodwill as an ambassador in sustainable development issues for the Inter-American Institute of Cooperation in Agriculture, San Jose, Costa Rica. He has received an honorary doctorate degree from 9 universities in India, Europe, USA, and South Africa. Professor Lal is laureate of the 2018 GCHCRA World Agriculture Prize, 2018 Glinka World Soil Prize, 2019 Japan Prize, 2019 US Avasti IFCO Award from India, 2020 AREL Global Food Innovation Award for Canada, the 2020 World Food Prize, 2021 Padma Shri Award of the Government of India, and 2021 B. Bilal Award of ICAR New Delhi, India. With this brief introduction, I now invite Professor Ratanlal ji to deliver the lecture. Hope all the participants will make best use of this opportunity. Thank you very much. Professor Ratanlal ji.
I had given the recorded lecture, so I suppose you are going to present the recording. Is somebody going to play the recorded lecture, please?
Yes, Professor Ratanlal sir, I'm doing that, sir.
Thank you.
వీడియో వచ్చింది కదా ఇందాక మనకి. వీడియో నచ్చింది ఇందాక. అడ్వాన్స్డ్ లో వచ్చింది.
I want to thank the organizer, Dr. Gopal Kakhani from Oklahoma State University, and the Dean, Dr. Pratap Kumar Reddy from ANGRAU for inviting me. I greatly appreciate the opportunity. The topic of my presentation is managing the health of soil in semi-arid tropics for food, climate, and other ecosystem services. The semi-arid tropics is a very large area. The region is characterized by highly variable rainfall, generally less than 700 millimeter per year, supra-optimal soil temperatures, especially during the growing seasons, and high risks of drought. The semi-arid tropic region cover about 30% of the world's total area and are home to maybe as much as 20% or more of the world population. These regions are prone to increasing temperatures by climate change, more intense droughts and heat wave, and extreme climate events. The rate of warming in some regions may exceed 0.2 degrees centigrade per decade. And in many cases, I've seen the rate higher than that between now and 2050. And the serious problem of soil degradation and land desertification may be aggravated with climate change and decline in soil quality and health. India is a typical region of very large semi-arid tropics. India's food production between 1947 and 2020 is a global success story and need to be repeated elsewhere, such as in sub-Saharan Africa, Caribbean, and other parts of the world. For example, in 1947, the population of 330 million, food grain production of 50 million tons. In 2020, population of 1.38 billion, food grain production of 300 million tons. The population increased by a factor of 4.2. The food grain production increased by a factor of 6. Yet, India has a potential to double its food grain production probably between now and 2050. And that potential can be realized by appropriate use of proven technology, science-based technology. But so far, India's food grain production success story has also created some problems of soil and environmental degradation. And these problems are created by practices such as under-fertilization, unbalanced, and sometimes over-fertilization. Indiscriminate use of pesticides, excessive and flood-based irrigation, unnecessary plowing when it's not even needed, in-field burning of crop residues. You know the problem is very severe in some part of the country, and uncontrolled and excessive grazing, where the cattle graze everywhere and leave the ground compacted, bare, and devoid of crop residues. These problems have aggravated the soil and environmental issues, which needs to be addressed. And India is a typical example of what can be done and should not be done in terms of the soil and environmental degradation. Soil degradation in India: water erosion affecting 64 million hectare, wind erosion 9, waterlogging 14, salinity and alkalinity 7, soil acidity 16, and some other complex problems. And yet, these statistics do not include the serious problem of soil organic matter depletion, nutrient imbalance, and nutrient mining, especially inappropriate use of nitrogen, but not of other elements, and also of brick making, which is a serious problem of soil degradation. So these problems bring us back to the topic of today's discussion, soil quality, which refer to the capacity of soil to function for specific land use or within ecosystem boundaries. This is NRCS definition. I have used a definition which refers to the soil quality as a capacity of soil to generate ecosystem services in natural and managed ecosystem to produce net primary productivity, strengthen hydrological and biogeochemical cycles, moderate carbon sequestration in terrestrial ecosystem, and enhance human well-being and nature conservancy. I want to emphasize the word nature conservancy. Human are part of nature. If nature is not protected, restored, and improved, human obviously cannot do any better. And soil quality can be physical, chemical, ecological, and biological. And the biological soil quality is what we call soil health. Soil is a living entity, and health of soil means the health of living organism in the soil. There is a strong connection between soil health and the life. Indeed, all life depends on the soil. There can be no soil without life and no life without soil. They have evolved together. The fact remains that the rhizosphere, the soil root interface at a nanoscale, is the only place in the universe where the death is resurrected into life. Soil has the divine powers to transform death into life. Death and life are the two coins, two sides of the same coin, and the coin happen to be the soil. That brings me to the subject of soil health. Soil health is also a dynamic and biological properties of the soil within natural managed landscape to sustain, again, multiple ecosystem services, which I've already mentioned, again, both for nature and human, nature and human. And soil health and soil quality are similar, but they are not the same. Soil quality is a quantitative measure of soil's capacity to perform its function. In comparison, soil health is a qualitative measure of soil biological properties and processes. We are trying to make it quantitative, and we continue to make progress, but right now, in general, it's qualitative and need to be improved. Again, it's a descriptive explanation of ecosystem services. An important part of my discussion today is a concept called One Health concept. One Health. Health of soil, plants, animals, human, environment, and the planet. is one and indivisible. This is called One Health concept. United Nations Food Summit having a discussion right now on this issue is also talking about the One Health idea. Therefore, in addition to the socioeconomic factors, which are very important to achieve food and nutrition security, research must also focus on the environmental and resource management issue of food security. Because of this One Health concept, if the health of soil is degraded, the health of human and other inhabitant of the planet surviving on soil cannot be improved either. Human health is indeed a fingerprint of soil health, and it can only be improved by restoration of soil health of degraded, polluted, and contaminated soil. Unfortunately, throughout the semi-arid tropic, especially in India, the soils are severely degraded. Restoration of soil organic matter content to above the threshold range can improve soil health and nutritional quality of the food produced. Human diet is very strongly affected by soil health, the quality of the diet, and the diet is poor because of the protein deficiency of vitamins, micronutrients, and many other important issues that leads to poor health of the human because of environmental pollution, water quality pollution, air quality pollution. These two are leading to very serious problem of malnutrition throughout the semi-arid tropics, especially so in South Asia and India. Diet and human health, they go together. Hippocrates said, let food be thy medicine and medicine be thy food. The Vedas, Upanishads, when diet is wrong, medicine is of no use. When diet is correct, medicine is of no need. So says Ayurveda, our ancient scripture, going back to thousands of years. Good food is a good medicine that can prevent, reverse, and even cure diseases. And this is the modern concept of One Health, where the health of soil impacts the quality of the diet and therefore the health of the people. Unfortunately, the most important component of soil health, the soil organic matter content, is very severely depleted throughout the semi-arid tropics, whether it's India, whether it's Africa, whether it's elsewhere. For example, the optimum range of the organic matter content is somewhere between 2.5 to 3.5 or 4%. And because the crop yield and productivity goes up until that range reaches, which varies from soil to soil to environment, but in general 3 to 4%. Most soils of India, especially of the semi-arid region, have an organic matter content of less than 0.5%, often as low as 0.1%. And that adversely affects the health of the soil, health of the plant, and health of the food grown on that soil, the poor quality. Therefore, soil organic matter content is the driver, is the determinant, is the strong factor affecting quality and quantity of water, the climate change adaptation mitigation, food and nutritional security, and of course, the above ground and below ground biodiversity. Soil organic matter content is the heart of soil health. And the mismanagement and land misuse has depleted the soil organic matter content of most soils of the semi-arid tropics in the developing country to a level which is not good for soil health, not good for human health. And this issue needs to be addressed. Futurist agroecosystems improved must be pathologically restorative. Pathologically means soil. Agronomically productive, environmentally regenerative, economically viable, socially congenial, clinically healthy, nutritional diet. That's what I'm talking about. Laboriously appealing, removing the drudgery from agricultural ecosystem. And these things are what we call soil quality, functionality, and soil health. And these are multi-sectorial, biodiverse, restorative, holistic, and these are restorative of soil rather than the depletive of soil. Therefore, on that basis, the 20th first century Green Revolution, the Green Revolution 2.0, the Green Revolution 1.0 was the 60s, the seed-based, improved varieties, dwarf varieties responsive to fertilizers and inputs of irrigation and other things that were need to modernize the increase the food production. Revolution 2.0 should be soil-based, soil resilience-based, which means improved organic matter content, ecosystem-based, must be eco-efficiency of the agricultural ecosystem. It must be knowledge-based, science and management-driven. It must be resource restorative-based. The idea is to improve the resources of these ecosystems. And that brings me to the law of return. The law states that the substance we take from nature or from soil must be returned to the place from which it was taken. If you remove nutrients from soil, they must be replaced. Without replacing, the soil health cannot be maintained. Therefore, sustainable soil management replace whatever you take, respond wisely to what is changed, and predict what may happen from human and natural perturbation of the soil and the environment, and produce more from less. The idea is not to keep dumping water by flood irrigation or keep plowing the ground unnecessarily or keep adding fertilizer when they are not needed or using unbalanced fertilizer, adding more nitrogen because it's subsidized and not phosphorus and micronutrients. Produce more from less. If we can improve the soil productivity by better management, we don't need so much area either. If we can use irrigation properly, by like drip sub-fertigation, we don't need that much water either. So the idea is producing more from less and saving land and water for nature. That's the goal, saving land and water for nature. So how do you feed India by 2050, especially with semi-arid region? In fact, India produces enough food already to feed 1.4 billion people or more. However, we waste quite a lot of food, 30 to 50% approximately. Fruits and vegetable perishable, much more than that. Reducing waste is very critical. Increasing access to food by addressing poverty, inequality, civil strife, political disturbance. Those are the problems which aggravate the food insecurity. We must improve distribution. Somewhere the distribution of food, the food is rotting someplace, but not available at another because of the poor distribution. We must increase use of pulses and plant-based diet. Unfortunately, the emphasis on changing to animal-based diet. It's okay in moderation, but plant-based food is much better, is much more healthier. And each one of us is a victim and a culprit. We must take a personal responsibility of not taking things for granted, not taking food for granted, not taking soil and natural resources for granted. It is our responsibility to increase agronomic productivity from existing land by restoring degraded land, increasing biological nitrogen fixation, protecting prime land against urbanization and brickmaking, serious problems in India, and returning some agriculturally marginal land back to nature, returning land back to nature. This is And please remember that the healthier soils do not always translate into higher production. The goal is not to maximize the production. The goal is to optimize the production and yet use resources prudently. Do not degrade the environment. Do not degrade air quality. Do not degrade water quality. Do not deplete biodiversity. Maintain soil health. And maintaining a stable, sustainable, optimum yield is okay. Accepting 5-10% less yield is all right. Do not waste more. Use prudently what you produce. And globally, humans waste 1 billion tons of food grains. In fact, waste more than 30% of the food grain produced. And this, my friend, my colleagues, fellow soil scientists and agronomists, is nothing other than crime against nature. Is not acceptable. There is no justification for always aiming at the maximum potential yield and then let it waste, decompose, and emit greenhouse gases. This is not acceptable. If we improve soil quality, soil health, and manage our land properly, we can save a lot of irrigation water. For example, irrigated land area. Right now, 70 million hectares in India, using 200 kilometer cube of water. We can increase the area over time to 82 million hectares by 2050, 75 by 2030, 100 million hectares, but save water. Instead of 200 kilometer cube, we can reduce the water use to 70 kilometer cube and yet increase the area by drip sub-irrigation rather than flood irrigation. Fertilizer use, right now we use 30 million tons. Fertilizer use efficiency of nitrogen may be hardly 20-25%. Why waste fertilizer? Apply fertilizer in a balanced way and supplement with the biological nitrogen fixation. Over time, by improving efficiency, the fertilizer consumption should be reduced. In-field burning of residue of 100 million tons every year must stop. By 2030, we must have a zero burning. We must provide farmers the technology so they do not have to burn. When we give them alternative and the technology to manage, they will not burn, but we must provide technology. Pesticide use 56,000 tons in India now. If we create soil healthy, they become disease suppressive soil. They produce healthy plants which do not require so much pesticide. The pesticide use should decrease over time, and we must have a target to do that. And yet the crop yield can go up. The cereals yield in India now about 2.1 ton per hectare. Nationally, can be doubled by 2100. Can be go up by 50% by 2050. Very easily. Post-harvest losses, 34% now, conservative. The losses of fresh vegetable and food, much more than that. We must have programs to reduce those losses by creating storage processes, by creating post-harvest management of produce, so that losses no more than 5%. Yes, some losses are unavoidable, but 40%, no, not acceptable. That I said is a crime against nature. Organic manure, we use only 200 million tons at the moment. By 2030, we can go up by 50%. By 2050, double it. By 2100, maybe go by 2.5 times. Therefore, soil health will improve. And these are the kind of policy issues which are important. Over time, we can reduce the food waste, and reduce the use of chemical, reduce the use of water that we are using very, very excessively. These are the policy matter which I hope the Oklahoma University, Oklahoma State, Ohio State, and others can work with ANGRAU and develop program to improve eco-efficiency. That's the idea. That's the name of the game. How? By regenerative agriculture. And what is a regenerative agriculture? It's the one inspired by eco-innovation. It's powered by non-carbon energy. It's driven by a circular economy and the green infrastructure, and is supported by the recarbonization of the terrestrial biosphere, soil and vegetation as the bedrock of sustainable development. Remember, I mentioned soils of India and of the semi-arid tropics have very severely depleted organic matter content. Restoration of that organic matter content is the key strategy. So a system-based regenerative agriculture can reconcile the need of producing adequate and nutritious food with the absolute necessity of restoring the environment, making agriculture a solution to environmental issues. Agriculture has to be a solution to the environmental issues because it encompasses a wide range of farming and grazing practices aimed at restoring and sustaining soil health through sequestration of organic matter content. There is no one technique that works in all soils of the semi-arid tropics or of India or of any region. That is not possible. But the basic concept which I mentioned, no-till farming, conservation agriculture, integrated nutrient management, cover cropping, mulch farming, returning whatever you remove, keep the soil protected, use balanced and judicious and prudent and selective chemical fertilizer and pesticide if needed. With better management, you may not need them. So the idea is continuous soil cover, no soil disturbance, integrated nutrient management, complex crop rotation, so that we can restore organic matter, produce more from less. That's the philosophy, produce more from less. By creating a positive soil carbon budget. The carbon put into the soil by different practices must always exceed the carbon being depleted from soil by erosion, leaching, and decomposition. This is the balance that we want. Unfortunately, throughout the semi-arid tropic, especially in India, what we put into the soil is nothing compared to what we are losing from the soil. Therefore, our soils are degrading. This trend has to be reversed. We must be thinking about carbon-based fertilization. We always talk about NPK. We must be talking about CNPK. C before NPK. And this concept, it means having varieties which are improved, plants that we can communicate with through molecular-based signal when they are under stress. They have a deep prolific root system. They are not necessarily short statured, but they are still robust plants which are responsive to inputs. And they do create a molecular-based signal that we can detect. They are grown with mulch farming techniques, with cover crops, and with complex rotation. We integrate the trees and crops with livestock. So we have integrated farming systems for improving soil health by restoring soil organic matter content. And if you need additional nutrients and water, they should be applied directly to plant root through drip sub-fertigation in such a way and at such a time that most of them are absorbed by plants, crops, and nothing leaks out into the environment. This is the science-based agriculture of producing more from less wastage, more efficiency, science-based technology. And the rate of carbon sequestration in the Indo-Gangetic plain with this kind of is about 300-400 kilogram per hectare. Elsewhere in semi-arid tropics, also about 400-500 kilogram per hectare. Even in Brazilian part of semi-arid, about 400 kilogram per hectare. In the other favorable part, maybe even more. Globally, about 500-400 kilogram per hectare of carbon can be restored in the soil through the management system that I suggested. And with that, if the carbon content in the soil can be increased by about 1 ton per hectare, for the same management, the yield of crops of maize can go up by 100 to 300 kilograms, soybean 20 to 50, wheat 20 to 70, rice 10 to 50, sorghum 80 to 150, millet 30 to 70, beans 30 to 60. Indeed, we can increase crop yield by 40 to 100 kilogram per hectare for the same input. If you can increase organic matter content by 10 tons, maybe your 15 to 20 year period, over 15 to 20 year period. It cannot happen overnight. We can drastically improve productivity of Indian cropland, drastically. At the same time, the quality of the land as well, and the quality of the diet, especially the quality of the diet. Globally, the technical potential of carbon sequestration in soils, all soils of the world, is about 2.5 gigaton, billion tons. Billion has 90. In addition to that, the cumulative carbon sequestration between 2020 and 2100 in soils of the world, about 180 gigaton, vegetation forest, about 150 gigaton. I'm hoping that the lower hills of the Shivaliks and Vindhyachal and Arvali and other mountain slope, which are all denuded, if they are planted back to the native vegetation, it's a win-win situation. It's a win-win situation because you improve the climate change mitigation issue, and at the same time you restore the environment, especially the water resources. The drought flood syndrome from which India, like many other countries, we suffer. During the rainy season, we have flood. During the dry season, we have no water. The solution lies in sustainable management of natural resources, which requires time. Establishment of vegetation will take time. That brings me to how do you implement these ideas? We need protection of policy, national policy, regional policy, global policy. And these policies have three options: preach, promote, teach, stewardship, provide economic incentive, and have some legal approaches. And I will talk about economic part. Farming carbon. Soil carbon is a commodity that can be bought and sold like any other farm commodity, agriculture commodity, like wheat, rice, sorghum, millet, milk, poultry, anything. It has a price. Farmer can be paid for that price. And the societal value of the carbon that the farmer should be paid, about $120 to $130 per ton, which is about $30 to $35 per ton of CO2. And if the farmer sequesters about half a ton per hectare, they should be compensated about $60, $65 per hectare. If they sequester 1/3 of a ton per hectare, they should be paid about $40, $45 per hectare, or $17 to $18. So the payment for ecosystem services to farmers of the semi-arid tropics, let's say Hyderabad area in India, where we are addressing this general public, about 1,500 to 2,000 rupees per acre per year. Maybe then the burning will stop. But we must make sure that the farmers are paid adequate amounts so they do not suffer losses. The legal part, soil is a living entity. Remember, I showed you life and soil have evolved together. There is no life without soil and no soil without life. Soil is a home to 25% of all biodiversity of the planet Earth. Just as the universal rights of human, rights of animal, therefore there must also be rights of soil and rights of nature. Being the essence of all life, soil must have the rights to be protected, restored, thrive, and managed judiciously. And this is what the legal part is that we should think about. We should also be thinking about soil health as a tripod. By adopting this soil-centric program that I've just outlined, we need a conservation agriculture package for the different regions of the semi-arid tropics. We need to find how to do integrated pest management, integrated nutrient management, drip sub-fertigation that I showed you the picture of, how to manage crop residue, recycle the crop residue and other bio-waste back to the land, following the law of return. And cover cropping, and make sure crop diversification, complex system, integration of crops with trees and livestock together. And for this team to work, we must have a policy. We must have a governance so that the farmers are empowered. They are given the right incentive that they need for generating the ecosystem services for the humanity and the nature. Those are the kind of policies which we require. These are the kind of education which we must give to our students so that we can create scientists for the next generation to address societal issues. I want to end by thank you once again, but also reminding you what the father of Indian nation, Shri Mahatma Gandhi ji once said, and I quote, "To forget how to dig the earth and to tend the soil is to forget ourselves." Having listened to his preaching, how dare we forget who we are, what our cultural heritage is? How dare we forget where we came from? How dare we forget where we all are destined to go? Please follow up these basic concepts, not only from science, but also from our leaders, both political and spiritual. Thank you for the opportunity to talk to you.
Thank you very much, Professor Ratalan ji, for such a highly thought-provoking lecture, throwing ideas to be addressed by the policymakers in particular, and all the agriculture scientists in general to pursue, emphasizing the importance of soil health and need of national policy or global policy. Our faculty and students are immensely benefited with your talk, sir. Yes, farmer has to be paid lucratively for the carbon sequestered by adopting suitable practices. Rejuvenating soil health in developing countries should be taken up on priority basis. Thank you very much, sir. Our faculty and students are very much benefited with your highly resourceful talk. Thank you once again. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. Dr. Uma Devi.
Sir, thank you, Professor Ratan sir. Thank you so much for delivering to us such a remarkably outstanding presentation. Your excellent delivery made your marvelous experiences come to life. We will go ahead and take some time for questions now, sir, with your permission. I request all the participants to please post your questions in the chat box, or please unmute yourself and ask questions.
Sir, good evening, sir. Sir, good evening, sir. This is sir. Good evening, sir.
Yes, I can hear you.
Sir, good evening, sir. This is hello, sir.
Yes, go ahead. Please ask your question.
Yeah, thank you very much. This is Dr. Murthy, sir, and I'm fascinated by your presentation. It's really a great one, and a new dimensions you have given regarding the soil health, and soil quality, particularly Indian perspective. So regarding the one aspect I was really fascinated is the legal aspects of the soil protection and preservation. So kindly throw some light on that Indian conditions, how, because you have a lot of information you have thrown in, like brick making, and then a lot of erosion is taking place in the Indian conditions.
because of its geographic variations. So kindly throw some of the based on your experiences, kindly throw some light on that, how best the soil scientists and government can work together.
Thank you. I think that's a good question. You mentioned soil erosion. As I said, that's a very huge problem. Almost half of the total land is affected by both water and wind erosion. Erosion is caused by land misuse and soil mismanagement. So when a soil is kept bare, unprotected, that aggravates the soil erosion. So I mentioned how to afforest the lower hills throughout the country to overcome the drought flood situation. And China made a very good effort in the 80s. Some of the world's serious erosion problem was in the Loess region of China. And they established the program of afforestation from mid-1980s. And by now, the erosion problem through the Yellow River sediment transport measurement, it's a real success story. US also adopted the Farm Bill, the so-called Conservation Reserve Program in 1997. And that was the first, 1987, that was the first Farm Bill. And 40 million acres of land, which was steep slope, were taken out of production. And therefore the Mississippi sediment transport is decreased to less than half by now. The farmers are compensated when they took their land out of cultivation. So erosion is controllable as long as we manage the land properly. Rather than plowing, if we leave the crop residue on the land, controlled grazing, agroforestry, all those things are known, proven research-wise by CREDA and ICR, by many institutions throughout India. So I think it's a matter of translating science into action, which I'm sure can be done. Brick making, I can understand the problem. There are no stones in the Indo-Gangetic region and other alluvial area. There are no timber. So people have to make homes. So brick making is needed for that. But do you have to use topsoil for brick making? Rather than removing topsoil from everywhere around the villages, how about selecting a few sites where you can mine the soil deeper and deeper like we mine other things? That's one option, selecting few areas where soils are not good quality and using those soils for brick making. Finding other alternative, fly ash, maybe rice husk, eventually converted into brick making material. Creating some synthetic material. India is a scientifically very advanced nation. Brick making was being done in the Indus Valley 5,000 years ago, just as was the flood irrigation. We have to change. Soil is very precious resource. We take away 1 meter of topsoil, which took millions of years to produce. And in a matter of hours and days, the topsoil is gone. I think these are a question of education. These are questions of policies. These are questions of communication with general public, that what should be done. And I think with the proper incentive, proper guidelines, with proper education, with the policy, these things can be done and should be done. We shouldn't be waiting. We, as I mentioned, people are victims and culprit, both. We have to take personal responsibility in improving the environment of India. And the environment is soil, water, air. 3 things. Unfortunately, all those 3 are very degraded at present.
Sir, we have few questions in the chat box. One is from
Please
Dr.
read.
Suresh Kumar, sir. How the issues of small farms and farmers can be addressed in sustainable agriculture in resource-poor conditions? How can we ensure the organic fertilization to small farms?
Well, organic fertilizer is one of the option. Obviously, I mentioned manure. We use only part of the dung. Most of the crop residue is either taken away or burnt. There's a lot of bio-waste available in the cities. All of that can be composted. And so city bio-waste, agricultural waste, industrial bio-waste, they can all be composted. Composting should become a very prominent industry in India. I think that we have a lot of biomass. Biomass is not composted properly in a systematic way. I think that is one part which is very critical. Secondly, even if you have to use chemical fertilizers, judicious use, so there are efficiency. The idea is not increase the rate. India already using more than the global average. India's fertilizer rate is 165 kilogram per hectare, compared with the US of only about 120 or 100 kilogram. Of course, China is using very excessive 400 kilogram, but India is using more than what many countries. Africa is using only, unfortunately, 17 kilogram per hectare. India, 10 times that. But the efficiency is very low, 25%, 30% at the most. The focus should be on improving the efficiency. And again, soil health is a very key factor of the efficiency. Soil organic matter content, soil biodiversity, soil method of land preparation, soil mulching, cover crops. These are very, very important factors. So it's a two-thing: recycle organic matter, all organic matter, including human waste, into compost, animal, human waste, bio-waste, agricultural waste, convert all of that into compost, and then biological nitrogen fixation, and then whatever chemical fertilizer used properly, judiciously, discriminately, prudently, so that they are not polluting the environment. Integrated soil fertility management is the answer.
Thank you, sir. Another question from Tadi Rajshekar, sir. What is the reason behind the soil organic stock in most of the Indian soils very low?
Because soil do not receive the input of organic matter. The crop residue, both the root and the above ground biomass, they are the source of soil organic matter content. Farmers take away the residue for feeding to the cattle, or they burn the residue, there's nothing left behind. And the residue which is fed to the cattle, the cow dung, the animal dung, is not brought back either. So land does not receive anything. Where will the organic matter come from? The organic matter comes from by returning the biomass back to the land. I think we have to think about ways how to produce fodder for the cattle. We should have special farming system by which you produce fodder. And some fodder can be used, some crop residue can be used for fodder, but then the biomass from animal should come back. When the land does not receive any residue, any biomass, obviously soil erosion will deplete away, decomposition by organic matter, temperature high can decompose the organic matter content. Soils of India do not get anything. My philosophy is grains are for people, the crop residue is for the land. If the land does not get its share of the thing it has produced, then land rebels. And the rebellion of the land is degradation. And when land is degraded, then of course people suffer. People are mirror image of the land. So when people mistreat the land, do not give it its share, the land reciprocates and passes on its misery to the people. So somewhere we have to respect the land, give it the share of the produce it generates, and that produces the crop residue. So the residue must go. That is the law of return. Remember I said replace whatever you take away. Indian farmers do not replace what they take away. And we are responsible for that. If we compensate farmers, they are not desperate, they will replace it. If we don't compensate them, they will take it away.
Thank you, sir. There is a message from Professor P. Gurumurthy Garu, Soil Science Department Professor. It is pride for all our agricultural fraternity, particularly soil scientists, that you have received World Food Prize. We here at Anglo celebrated the occasion by organizing local functions.
Well, I'm very grateful to all the supporters and colleagues from around the world, but most importantly, I'm grateful to God for the blessings. And I think the important part from my perspective is not that I received the World Food Prize. I think I received on behalf of all the agriculturists and soil scientists, agronomists of the world. And I also would like you to know that I have designated that award money, all the award money that I've received, back for research and education. I do not plan to keep it. So I accepted it on behalf of all of us. I was honored, privileged that I was the one selected for it, but it is an award for all soil scientists, and it's an award for all agronomists. And I think it's an award for recognition for all farmers of the semi-arid tropics. I'm one of those farmers myself. So I accept it on behalf of all of you, and I'm very grateful for the support that I received and for God's blessing for this honor and privilege. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. A big round of applause to you, sir, on behalf of all the participants.
Thank you so much.
Another question from Tadi Rajashekar Garu. Soil inorganic carbon stock good compared to soil organic carbon in Indian soils. Can we have any chance to there for soil inorganic carbon to soil organic carbon stocks?
Very important question. And I must say that I missed an opportunity to talk about soil inorganic carbon. In the semi-arid tropics, soil inorganic carbon is much more bigger component of the total carbon than even the soil organic carbon. And sequestration of soil inorganic carbon can also mitigate climate change. And inorganic carbon sequestration happens by several mechanisms. One of the mechanisms is formation of secondary carbonates. The other mechanism is dissolution of bicarbonates and leaching into the groundwater. And then they precipitate eventually. And this research has not received as much emphasis, especially in India and elsewhere, as it should. In fact, as we speak, I am writing an article for the philosophical transaction of the Royal Society on this topic. And I'm working with colleagues from the US on inorganic carbon and its sequestration. In the US, colleagues with the USDA, they have mapped soil inorganic carbon stock for the country and also evaluated the rate of sequestration. This paper that I mentioned for the philosophical transaction of the Royal Society will contain that data. One reason why it is not being considered research-wise, because carbonates do not have as much impact on productivity, on water retention, on soil quality as the organic matter content has. So from an agricultural point of view, the impact is not so obvious as it is with organic. But from the climate change point of view, inorganic carbon is very important in arid and semi-arid climate, especially in the tropical regions. I'm glad you asked that question. Miss, I have 5 more minutes. I have another appointment at 10 o'clock, so I can probably answer 1 or 2 more questions.
Okay, so thank you so much, sir. Any queries from the participants? Please unmute yourself and ask your questions. We have only 2 minutes. Please hurry up.
I'm just getting done in a few minutes. Thank you. Looks like we have answered most questions. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you very much, sir. If
Thank
there
you.
are no questions, I would like to thank you, sir. I would like to extend heartfelt thanks at the outset, Sri A. Vishnuvardhan Reddy Garu, Honorable Vice Chancellor and IDP Leader, and Dr. A. Pratap Kumar Reddy Garu, Dean of Agriculture and Principal Investigator of IDP, for their endless support and guidance in all the IDP activities. On behalf of you and IDP team, I extend my sincere thanks to Professor Ratan Lal for his stimulating and insightful presentation today. Special thanks to Professor Vijay Gopal Kakani Garu, Distinguished Professor, Member of OSU Faculty Council, Department of Plant and Soil Sciences, Oklahoma State University, USA, for arranging this lecture. I also thank all the university officers for their gracious presence in spite of their busy schedule. Thanks to IDP team at university and college level for their continuous support, and expect the same support in our future activities also. My dear participants, thank you for your overwhelming response. Initially, we had hiccups. Please excuse me for that. Thank you for your time and have a wonderful time rest of your day. Thank you so much. Have a great weekend.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.